Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the undeserved victory lap the OSR and the indie commentators took on Dungeons and Dragons for having a bad financial year this year. So we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about some math, right? That's what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about some math, right? Because I think there's just a lot of there's a lot of bad opinions being presented as facts, and there's an assigned narrative being applied that's just completely wrong on what happened with Dungeons and Dragons and its finances in 2022. And so here's the issue. So the reason why we're talking about this is I feel every insult that D&D gets online. Personally, I don't like to hear it. I really don't. And I feel it's really unfair. And I feel like Dungeons and Dragons, every time they move a centimeter to the right, a centimeter to the left, somebody just tears them a new one because there's all this D&D hate. D&D is a winner, and haters gonna hate, and a lot of people hate winners, and D&D is a global level winner, right, in the tabletop role playing game. And I just feel like a ton of OSR and a ton of indies commentators really just don't give it the credit it deserves, and are constantly saying very outrageously wrong opinions, often presented as facts. And so let's get into this. So basically, in 2022, Hasbro took a hit, right? And Wizards of the Coast specifically took a hit and was losing money. And banks were saying, "Hey, you should stop buying Hasbro stock because of games Hasbro owns that are within the Wizards of the Coast, umbrella." And I know I already hear you're like, "Oh, Scott, that's about Magic the Gathering." Guess what? Exactly nothing, in my humble opinion, that happens on Magic the Gathering is even remotely isolated from D&D. They are 100% mixed, have been from the day James Wyatt officially canon connected MTG to D&D, and it's been going on through Amanda Heyman and through tons and tons and tons of product. MTG is all about D&D, and frankly, in my humble opinion, MTG ain't nothing but a D&D supplement at this point. It never was, right? Peter Atkins was like, "Oh, well, this Magic thing is cute. As soon as I got yacht money, I'm buying D&D," right? Like, Magic has always been about D&D. It's always the little brother kind of trying to get in on the activity of the big brother. Magic has always, from day one, been about D&D. And frankly, it's if you look at MTG, it ain't nothing but a D&D book that's not bound. It's printed on cards rather than pages, and it has been from day one. That's my humble opinion. Let's talk about some numbers, right? So people were like, "Oh, they're down. They, I took a major hit this year," and I think the numbers were 33%, or some, they were down. And there's no two ways. MTG and D&D, their finances were down this year. Their revenues were down. Everything was down, right? But here's the kicker, right? So I listened to Grace Randolph. She is the best reviewer in the entire world, and I'm going to spit some facts, okay? And this is what really happened with Dungeons and Dragons in 2022, okay? So Grace Randolph just did a fantastic video that talked about billion-dollar films, right? And she broke it down. In 2019, the top 9 movies of the year made $1 billion plus, and some of them made $2 billion, okay? Only one movie on the top 10 list made less, and that was it was the second Jumanji, and it made $980 million. If you grant it $20 million, every single movie of 2021 was $1 billion film or more. In 2020, there were exactly zero movies that made $1 billion because the Great Pandy arrived. In 2021, one movie made $1 billion. One, and that was Spider-Man: No Way Home. In 2022, 3 movies made $1 billion. 3, okay, and they were in this order of earning. Okay, they were Top Gun: Maverick, they were Avatar 2, they were Jurassic World Dominion, excuse me, okay? $3 billion films. Not a one of them was a comic book film. That's worth noting, okay? That's a change. And what this tells us is the world has changed. D&D didn't lose a cent this year. Magic didn't lose a cent this year. All that happened is that the Great Pandemic has completely reshaped all global businesses. And so the real story wasn't D&D, D&D down, right? The real story was the entire industry, every industry across the board is down, with a few exceptions that had weird spikes from the Great Pandemic, right? And you're like, oh, streaming was a weird spike from, shut it, right? D&D came out in 1974. It was here way before the Great Pandemic, and it'll be here when we no longer have to wear masks from the Great Pandemic. Who knows when that's going to happen, right? And because I just spent 2 conventions masked, right? It's frustrating. I'm hoping for that day it comes soon. So that is the real issue. D&D didn't lose a cent. The entire gaming industry, and frankly, every major global industry at scale, took massive hits and are still recovering from the Great Pandemic. And rather than be truthful, the OSR and the indies are taking a victory lap, laughing at D&D, but the laughter should be going their way. Because, oh, how'd you guys do this year, OSR and indie? You don't know, and we don't know, because you are so irrelevant that the markets don't even pay attention to your numbers. Nobody knows your numbers because nobody cares. There you go, right? That's the reality. So that undeserved victory lap should not have happened, and I'm giving you the facts. D&D didn't lose a cent this year. All that happened is every global brand, right, lost money. That's the true story. But the OSR and the indies don't want to tell you that, and they sure as heck don't want to tell you their numbers, and they can't because nobody even takes the time to track them, right? So OSR and indie, I come at you for having the audacity to take an undeserved victory lap on Dungeons and Dragons. You shouldn't have done it. It was undeserved, and it was wrong. All that, every single word of it, is my humble opinion, and I am super eager to hear your humble opinion on the same topic. Get in them comments below, send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.